Hi, Dive Talk World. Well, each time I do one of these, I keep finding myself saying, I'm so excited about this particular guest. And I wonder every time I say that if I'm truly the most excited about that guest as I am about the next guest. And this guest, I have never felt more excited about interviewing anybody for years. And I don't remember how many years ago, and I'm going to let him introduce himself in a second. I took Steve, this is Steve Pryor from England, a course director with PADI. We'll get more into that in a second. But I took his online course that helped me prepare for the PADI instructor exam. It was for the exam, and it was game changing. And his approaches to teaching. And then I went further and I took my IDC staff with him, and then I went and visited him, and I learned so much. What's surprising, and you're going to do most of the talking, Steve. I'm only going to do this part up front, but I want everybody to understand this. What's surprising is I didn't walk away amazed about what I learned about diving or how to teach candidates how to teach students how to scuba dive. Yes, I learned a great deal about that, but not nearly as much as I learned about how can we make learning more effective in every single thing we do and change lives for the positive. That's what blew me away. That never left my approach, which I got from Steve. So I can't wait for you to hear this. I think it will help make diving extremely healthy. And Steve, really fast, just an introduction and background about yourself. I know you're so humble. That's one thing about you, but just a bit about your background. And then after you tell about your background, what inspired you to develop this fast teaching method so people can learn fast? So both of those things at once.
Okay. So, well, the introduction's sort of fairly basic, really. My name's Steve, and yeah, I mean, I started diving, when we all did years ago, and we developed, and we got. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on. Maybe I think probably rather than bore people with introductions to start with, which is great. Now, do you want me to talk about FAST, or do you want me to talk about natural buoyancy?
I know I'm going to want to first get into FAST and natural buoyancy. Okay, we're going to get into both, but I am
Okay.
very, very, very intrigued with FAST. So
Okay.
how did you come to realize? This is the first question that'll get into it. I'm going to hit you with questions.
Okay.
They're
Do it.
they're really cool questions. How did you come to realize that traditional teaching methods were not as effective as you hoped? And then what sparked your creation of the FAST learning method?
Yeah. Right. Okay. So tough questions, really, because I can't take all of the credit from FAST, because I was working with a dive master many, many, many years ago, and she was as enthusiastic as I was, and we were often talking about the psychology, of how people are learning and what gets in the way, and she'd come up with the foundations of FAST. So it wasn't really me at the beginning, it wasn't me developing it. So she come up and we started talking about it. And as we were talking, I realized two things about FAST. By the way, for all these people listening, we're talking about these words fast, what are we talking
About? We're going to get to it.
This thing about FAST, it's what do they call it? It's an acronym, is it? Is that what they call it? F.A.S.T. So we're using the letters F.A.S.T. to sort of develop a methodology, really, of perhaps trying to connect with our class. I mean, that's basically where it was. And while we were talking about this, I sort of realized just how effective it was in the way that I were learning things, but also as an instructor, I was realizing that aspects of this fast were sort of, affecting the people that I taught and how they learned. So I sort of felt that if we sort of honed in on the good bits, and maybe we can fish out and make it a little bit better. So that's really where it started from, and developed quite a bit since. So should we go into it, Woody? What they are, the letters F, A, S, and T. Should we check that out? Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
Yep.
so
We're gonna go in. Let's break it. By the way, Steve's like a platinum course director for PADI, and he like gets that every year. I don't even know how many other accolades he has, but it's quite incredible. So yes, let's break down the FAST method. So start with F. Which is forget, and I'll let you expand on it. I don't want to minimize it. How do you encourage students to forget what they already know and approach a topic with a blank slate? And the reason I'm breaking down the questions, because I'm very purposeful in what I do here. Okay. That's really hard with the amount of ego that has creeped into diving, right? You want me to forget? I already know stuff. I'm not forgetting. Talk about that.
Okay. So as you say, the F stands for forget. So there's a few things that we need people to forget. We need people to forget about, well, the future and the past, and we need to be staying in the present. So we don't think about what we're going to be buying for tea tonight, or we don't think about the argument we had with our brother yesterday. We're only focusing on today. But you're quite right to bring up probably the most important thing. And this is like a really, really weird one, this one. If someone's going to learn something, they need to forget what they already know. Now, why would I ask them to do that? Why? Well, I think the answer to that is because if they've already got stuff going on in their head and they're listening to a class, there's so much that can distract them. There's so much which is going to take them away from learning. And that is because they're always waiting for the instructor to come up with the next bit that they know is on the list, the bit that they were good at before. They're always waiting for that bit. When's that going to come up? And this is all being distracted by from the learning process. So it sort of gets in the way. And we also get those students, we've all had them, the people watching this video, if they're instructors themselves, they get students that come up and say, look, I want you to treat me like I'm a beginner, to treat me as if I know nothing, and that's really good. And that's a great thing to say, but a very difficult thing to do. I mean, you can't forget something that you already know. I mean, if I was to ask you to think of forget about a pink elephant right now, I mean, you can't do anything else but think of a pink elephant. Actually, if I asked you to think of an elephant, Woody, it'd have to be pink anyway, wouldn't it? It would be pink in any case. So here we've got a paradox now, because you said to me, I think in your question to me, if I remember what you said, is how do you get the student to forget? I think that's what you asked me. Yes. So we've got like a paradox here now. We've got like it's going to sound, anybody listening to me now is going to say, well, he's contradicting himself, because the way we do it, Woody, is ask the student what they already know. At the very beginning of the lesson, you say to the student, what is it you already know about this topic? Now, we get 2 bonus points from this, two real bonus points. One of them is, as the student's explaining this to you, you sort of can work out whether they really have got it, whether they understand, if there's any holes in their knowledge, so you can fill those in. And the other thing is, if they do fully understand that aspects of it, they already know something about it, you know, and they know that it's pointless going over that bit again, other than to bring it as a bridge to the new thing. So we got 2 bonus points by actually asking them straight up, what is it that you know about it? And then once that's all out and cleared, when the lesson goes on, there is no that psychology of the confusion in the students' heads. The learner now isn't having to wait for the next bit to tick off the list, because it's all clear and we're all out and we're off on it. So that's, I think, an answer to your question. Do you think that's good?
I think brilliant is an understatement. It's just amazing. So as brilliant as that is, let's move on, okay? We're going to move on to A.
Okay.
Hugely important. Attitude and active. How
Okay.
do you foster an eager and an excited attitude among your students? And you really do. And what kind of activities do you use to keep them active? And I remember you used to tell me in this particular one, in a way, and I may say this wrong, they got to kind of be active and they kind of teach themselves. So you take it from there.
Okay, well, you've got a good memory. That's exactly right. I think that's what this active thing is. Um, it is teaching themselves. I mean, we'll find if we get on to teach neutral buoyancy as well, it's the same in the pool. We're talking about classroom stuff, but it's all the same thing. Is the involvement is allow people to. The words I use is allow people to learn. So don't get in the way of the process, because I can't learn people, and that's a really good sort of way to explain the active bit. You know, act, the student has to be active in a classroom to learn. They must. Learning is not a spectator sport. I mean, a student can't sit in the classroom with their arms folded and say, learn me. It just doesn't work that way. So we need to get involved. We need to get a two-way conversation, if you like. We need to work with the students to get them to talk. So you've asked me, how would I get the students to work? How would I get that to do that? Because it's easy enough to say to a class, ask questions at any time. You could speak whenever you like, but they're all silent. They're all sitting there. So we
Exactly.
need, yeah. So we need to create a really safe atmosphere. Safe by means that no one's ever going to get criticised by any questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question. They can be part of any part of the lesson that they want to. Now, if we go back to the F in forget, because forget, you remember what I said to what we need to do with the instructor is to ask the class what they already know about the subject. So we're already on the active bit, because what's happening now is as the student tells the instructor what they already know about the subject, again, they're refreshing that in their mind. They are teaching themselves again, renewing it just by already doing the forget thing. So you've already started. When you're in the classroom, you've already started creating this active or this attitude of being involved already. So the next thing we need to do is then continue that. Now, everyone's got their own personality, everyone's got their own technique, but the technique that I tend to use is I tend to pretend that I'm a bit dim, really. I pretend
Mm.
to I don't understand things properly. I like, for example, if I was teaching a dive master class, for example, I'd sort of say, oh, don't be ridiculous. How am I going to get nitrogen in my bloodstream, for heaven's sake? I mean, how's that ever going to
Mm.
happen, And then, of course, one or two people will start to explain it to me, and I'll go, oh, okay, yeah, I get it now. But it's only going to stay the same. It doesn't matter how deep I go. And they'll explain, as the pressure. And then, so each other people in the class, if there are some people in the class that didn't fully understand that, they're going to learn it much more from the other people in the class than they are from the same voice giving it all the time. And sure that as eggs is eggs, that the people that are explaining it to me are absolutely learning it, because, and of course, if they don't quite get where they are, then the next question will be, well, how is nitrogen going to get into my bloodstream, for heaven's sake? I mean, after all, the air has got nitrogen in it, hasn't it? Yeah, it goes into the lungs, and they'll eventually tell me, they'll get it there, And so anybody listening to this, you might think, oh, come on, you can't answer those questions. That's it. You've got to understand, guys, that it depends on the class. You can't patronize these people. So the questions need to be very carefully worded for the people that are in your class at the level that they're at, and it needs to be tailored, but that's how you do it. So you get the class to tell you, and that's how they can be active. And it's the most fantastic way. Why is it fantastic? They do all the work. You just, just sit there and you just got to make sure that they don't go off track. That's all. That's fantastic. So there we are.
Well, here's what I have to add to this, everybody. You see, what Steve is implying, and I know he knows this, but he does it naturally. and so do some instructors. In order to do what he just said, you have to be an instructor that actually cares about the student learning rather than an instructor cares about how much you know. And that will allow you to have this active approach. If you are truly teaching to care, let the student learn, then it's natural to have them active. If you are really in that room to show them, I know everything, I'm the unbelievable mighty instructor, you're going to struggle with this one. So
Yeah.
I'm just putting it out there. That is truth. And well, you're a master, and so let's continue because they're equally as fascinating as we go on.
No, but it's true what you say. You must have empathy with the class. You must be able to stand in their shoes. You must be able to see it from their point of view. And you shouldn't care at all. I mean, we're not going to be talking about positive coaching. That's another one of my absolute favorites. But when I use positive coaching techniques, you know, I tell people the wrong thing sometimes, and the rest of the class say, "You're wrong, Steve, you're wrong, you're wrong." I don't care what people think about me, as long as they are improving, it's just fantastic. Anyway, yeah, so move on to the next one, shall we? State, is that where we're going next?
Yeah. And just to pick up on what you just said, because it's making me think, they often think when you take this approach, Steve, you guys didn't really do much when you taught me. And I'm like,
they're right.
Perfect.
Yeah,
I did it.
fantastic.
That's the best thing I can, right? So, like, other instructors are like, wow, he doesn't really add much to the class, right? It's really subtle. It's
Can I
very
come in here?
interesting.
Can I come in here? And I'll tell you why. Because everything we're trying to do is learning. That's what it's about. It's learning. It's not teaching. So really, it's only the students that can do it. The instructor can't do it. The instructor can't learn for somebody. So it has to be the student that does the most and the instructor that does the least, because it's the learning process. There's no point in I can teach anybody anything at any time, but will they learn it? No. That's the beauty of it. I mean, I could stand in the middle of our high street and teach a diving course, but no one's going to learn anything. So anyway, sorry, we're off target here. Sorry.
It's awesome. Okay, so let's move on.
We
The
will.
S in the word fast is state of mind. Now,
It is.
why is having fun, and these are your words, and monkeying around, you told me to monkey around over and over, so crucial for learning? And can you share some examples of how you incorporate fun, this state of mind, into your lessons? This one's, I mean, there's science behind this one. So
I really
have
don't
at
know
it.
I don't really know how to answer this one, Woody. I need to do a bit more analysis on this myself, I think, to better answer. All I do know is that, the people in the world that learn the most are kids. I mean, when you think about kids, especially young kids, I mean, the amount that they learn in any week or any month is just phenomenal. And I can promise you, they don't read books, they don't watch videos, and they don't take exams. They just muck about and play, and their knowledge increases like an exponential scale. And I do know that most courses I teach, I go through the FAST thing, and I say that, you got to muck around, guys. You got to be acting like kids. You need to be children. And nearly every course I teach, people say, you want to be careful. Bless you. They say you need to be careful what you say to us, because we tend to muck about a bit, really, and you're giving us like too much of a lead here, really. So you're going to be very sorry that you're telling us to muck around. But I'm never sorry. I'm telling you, it's great. As long as the class can keep focusing, it's great. And I don't really know, other than myself, not to take anything seriously. I don't know, but it all comes with this atmosphere of the active part of it. Really, they're all interlinked. They're all interlinked, and me mucking around. The class know that I'm mucking and they know that I'm dim if I pretend I don't. I mean, I'm a bloody course director. They know that I know how much nitrogen goes into my bloodstream, so they know I'm only playing. But they, they join in and they do it. So I can't really know how to answer this much more than just doing what we're doing now. I mean, we're laughing now, for heaven's sake, Woody, you and I. So
That's great.
we're just doing it. It just happens, and I think, I mean. I think diving's fun. Is diving fun? I think diving's fun.
Listen, it needs to. It should always be fun.
Okay.
I mean,
So
for me, the only reason I dive is for fun. I
yeah,
don't. That's how I do have fun. So
yeah, yeah.
I
So
I
if
I,
diving
I
is, yeah. So I was going to say, if diving's fun, surely learning about diving should be fun, surely. And so therefore teaching diving should be fun, shouldn't it? And any instructor that tries to make it too serious is like, hang on a minute, the whole point of this is that diving is fun. So,
exactly.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's where I was going with that. Yeah.
Absolutely true. And so, ever since you put that one into my brain, I kept reading more and more and more articles. I was so fascinated by the fun part.
Oh,
And
yeah.
there is a ton of actual scientific evidence that if
Wow.
you try to stress your students, they cannot learn. No matter
Uh,
what you want to, no matter what you do, no matter what you say to them, their brain is no longer in an intake mode. It's actually starts to move into a survival mode and gets a very narrow focus. And the focus becomes there's nothing more input stimulus I can handle right now. I'm stressed. And the only
mm,
thing I'm going to do is protect you, Woody. Everything
mm,
else, I'm not listening to.
yep.
You can't learn if you don't have fun. You just can't.
Stress and learning can't come in the same sentence. They just can't come in the same sentence. Stress and learning, it doesn't fit. No,
Yeah,
no.
yeah. Now there is a other side to this because I love the controversy that comes from dive talk at times. It's
Hey,
interesting is that we're going to get a lot of instructors, and they're not wrong, that will say, look, when you're going into very potentially dangerous dives on very technical gear way back into a cave and the blank hits the fan, you need to know whether or not you can deal with stress.
uh,
Therefore, we have to implement stress in some of these classes in order to let you get used to the feeling, to the sensation, to the narrow mindedness so you don't kill yourself and everybody else. That's how cave diving can be. There is some validity in that. So it's a balance is what I would comment back on that one to everybody who may jump on this particular one, Stephen.
yeah,
They add
yeah,
comments at that talk. There is a balance, right? But for recreational diving, it should always be fun. We're not, you may have a stressful situation here and there, but um, I think it's very rare that we have to introduce a severe level of stress into diving, but there are some cases where it may make sense. So
uh,
anyway,
yeah. If I can just take that a little bit further, then, because I know nothing about the cave diving, the technical side of it. That's I'm not there at all, but I understand what you're talking about is that people need to deal with stress. I get that. But I want to make a distinction about learning something and then doing something with it. And I do believe that the learning, whatever it is that they're learning, needs to be totally stress-free. Then after that, then you can take it to a challenge point of view. And then the application of that within a course, I mean, not in real life, but I mean within a course where you can then introduce that stress, but not on the learning of the
mm,
beginning part of it. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but I think
mm-hmm,
we get that with I see this a lot of mistake. I believe it's a mistake that many instructors that I've seen just on a very simple um, PADI rescue course, for example, where they try and introduce stress when people are learning the skill of how to deal with something, where they need to learn to deal with that skill stress-free, and then we can have a scenario which is stressful, maybe. So there's a difference between learning something and then applying it, even within a course. So I just wanted to, maybe that's what you were saying anyway, but I just wanted to make a distinction on there, So
No, that's really good clarification, actually. That's
I think anyway.
spot on. Okay. So,
Okay.
so let's talk about the T,
Oh, right.
right? The T, the final letter.
Okay. So T stands for teach.
Teach.
And
Which, yeah, go ahead. And the reason why it's interesting is you kind of just said we don't want to do this, but yet here we are on the word teach. Okay, so
yeah,
tie that
yeah.
together.
Another paradox, eh? Another contradiction from
Yes,
Steve Pryor. Here we go.
exactly. I love
So,
it. I love it.
so the last thing we need to do is teach. Okay, so forget about teaching, and now this one is all about teach. Okay, so what is all this about? Okay,
Yes.
so this. Okay, this is a little bit about this. Can I just go back to the A a minute, just briefly to come onto the T?
Sure.
No, I won't do. No, I won't do it. Yes, I will. Okay, so I don't know what to do with this. Now I'll stick with the teach. Okay, stick with the teach. So what psychologists tell us, or psychiatrists tell us, is we got two parts of a brain. We've got a left-hand side of a brain and we've got a right-hand side of the brain. The left-hand side of the brain is the boring bit where you're trying to learn all this stuff, and this is like the tedious stuff. And we've also got the right-hand side of the brain, and that's like the exciting part. That's like, what are we going to do with all this stuff? This is what, how's it all going to work with us? And this is one thing which is so natural to me. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the same with everyone else, but if I'm watching the TV, if I'm watching the telly, and there's a program on the TV, and I've got a friend of mine that was just talking about this subject only the other day, was talking about this subject, and I'm watching the subject on the TV. Now I'm going to listen to that program on the TV because I'm going to chat with my mate in 2 days' time. I'm going to see him, and I know what I'm going to be telling him everything, and I'll be listening to the TV. And as I'm learning all the facts and figures and everything else from the television, I'm imagining myself passing this on to my friend afterwards. And if you can do that, if everything you learn, like in diving, if you're learning something in diving, but at the same time you imagine that you're going to be the person who's passing that on to someone else, you're the guy with the big ego, really. You're the guy with the ego now because you know this whole subject. But if you're sort of thinking that, so you're learning it and also thinking how you're going to relate it to your friend when you see him, because that's taking in, so psychologists are saying that if you're taking this in both sides of the brain at the same time, the left-hand side and the right-hand side, you learn much quicker. And I can really qualify for this because I'm doing it all the time. Everything I learn, I just think, how am I going to fit this into my class? Everything, if someone's telling me something, I'm automatically thinking, how am I going to sneak this into the lessons in the future? Because I'm always wanting to increase and make my classes better. So there we go with that one. So that's really what the teachers really, I think.
It's great. If you can teach something, you really know it, right? I mean, if you can, yeah. What
Descendo.
about that?
Here we are. I can't speak Latin, okay, but the words are something like descendo discimus. So anybody watching, by the way, if you can speak Latin, that's going to be the most awful pronunciation. But it means by teaching we learn. So you're right. That's exactly it. It's the saying, by teaching we learn. And you get, I mean, all of us instructors, we've done it. We teach a subject, we teach it week in, week out, week in, week out. And after about 3 months, we finally understand it ourselves. We've got it. Oh, I get it. I get it now, So yeah, anyway, so that's good.
So I thought a lot about this. Here's the surprise and why I tied this together.
Oh, yeah.
We just went through this incredible method of FAST. It works. It's amazing. It's going to make your classes vibrant and active, and people are going to have fun, and they're really going to learn. But can they be taught and learn in any method The big topic of diving, neutral buoyancy, or what you call natural buoyancy, because the word natural, in a way, I've been really thinking about this, Steve, like, wait a second, that's just natural. So let's not do anything. Forget fast. How about it's just natural? So if it's natural, what am I going to do as the instructor to get you, Steve, to be what you already have naturally? Please talk about this one. It is nonstop. Instructors are trying to get their students neutral. I love tying this together.
Well, you know, I don't know. I guess like a lot of people watching this, we all had a similar beginning. You know, we all was excited to learn to scuba dive, and you go along to your first class, and you drop to your knees, and the instructor comes up and gets you to take the regulator out your mouth and put it back in again. Then you have to wait until he's gone down the line, all the other people down the line, and then you come up and have a bit of a chat, and you get back down again, and then take the regulator out again, chuck it over your shoulder, and then your instructor claps your hands. Yeah, that's and you've done so well, and you've done it once. You've done it once in front of them, and then he moves on down the line, and then it gets worse. Then after the first lesson, my instructor came up to me and said, "Did you enjoy the lesson?" And of course I said, "Oh yeah, I did." I'm thinking, right, I don't really know what I did. I just knelt there and done nothing. And then it gets worse, because then I become an instructor. And then for 20 years, I'm getting people to drop to their knees and take the regulator out of their mouth and giving them a clap and, moving on down the line. And they do nothing for an hour. The instructor's really busy, working down the line. The students aren't learning and they don't do anything. So, yeah, I mean, I felt that we needed to have a better way. And actually, once I realized there need to be a better way, it wasn't that difficult to find it, because if you then start to think about absolutely anything else that you learn, I mean, anything else that you learn, any other sport, any other activity, it's never the same as like learning to take your regulator out of your mouth. And the very first thing you do, I mean, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, it really is ludicrous. It becomes the norm, though, doesn't it, Woody? I mean, it becomes the normal. We sort of accept it and we do it because everybody else does it. And anyway, so then I started thinking about other things like, well, I don't know, if you learn a racket sport like tennis or something, I mean, the first thing you would do is just get into a rally until your confidence comes, and then you might learn how to serve and then put some spin on the ball. You don't learn those things first. If you're learning to ride a bike, you don't learn to turn left first or turn right first. You learn to get your balance and move on. So I just thought, well, if we just do that in scuba diving, and I thought, well, hang on a minute. We do that in scuba diving. We discover scuba diving. I mean, if you get people coming on for a discover scuba, a try dive, I mean, what, within how many minutes? 5 minutes? They're swimming around the pool anyway. They're already diving. So I don't really like to use the word buoyancy too much at all. I mean, I did start by saying, well, this is sort of neutral buoyancy. But of course, then people were getting the wrong idea. They was imagining, like the stuff that you guys do with the cave diving, like totally stationary, 1 inch off the bottom, taking your mask off, putting it back on again, for the first pool session of an open water course. I mean, it just was ludicrous. So I really don't ever use the word buoyancy with students. I just say, oh, can you swim, somewhere between the surface and the bottom, and just go, just like you would with a DSD. Now, imagine that somebody's going around the pool. I mean, these guys on a DSD or the open water course, I mean, we can all remember, can't we, the first time we went underneath the water? I mean, it is amazing, isn't it? You can see you're like Superman. You're floating around. You're just going around like a real frogman. It's just amazing for the first time around the pool. Then the second time around the pool, it's that's good. And the third time around the pool, and it's cool. And then the fourth and the fifth time around the pool, like, I'm getting a bit bored now. Well, when the bored bit comes in, that's the time when the instructor says, well, why don't you just take your regulator out and put it back in again, give them something to do. And there's not a person in the world that can't do that. I mean, if they've got to that stage of swimming round, there's nothing in the world that you know, that there's nobody that can't just sort of take it out, blow some bubbles and put it back in again. And so therefore we've started, and there we are. And the other thing is, you know, when I learned to dive, you remember, I'm sitting there, take the regulator out, put it back in. Yeah, you're brilliant. That's great. Well, we all know that when we perform a skill for the very first time, it's all unnatural for us when we do it. We want repetition. We don't want to do it once. We don't want somebody to say, well done, you've done it after you've done it once. I mean, no one's going to get it perfect anyway. I mean, there's going to be people that forget to blow. You're asking a brand new student to blow bubbles. Well, how many bubbles? What does it feel like? How does it work? You know, they've got to. The other thing is, you know, so anyway, so they'll go around and perform the skill in front of the instructor, and then as they go wrong, they can do it. You empower your students. You need to give them the empowerment. They tell you when they've had enough, when they've done it enough times and they've got it. And believe you me, they won't last long before they tell you, because they want to get on to the next bit. They want to move on, but they'll tell you when they've done it. And by telling you, they'll have perfected it. Now, this is another great way of teaching. And the reason is because everybody in the world is different. We're all different body shapes. We're all different, you know, physical abilities. We've got strengths and weaknesses all over the place, but mentally as well. We've got different preconceived ideas. We've got different ways of thinking about being in the water. Is the butterflies in my stomach, is that due to nervousness, or is it due to excitement? What is it? I don't know, you know, and everyone's different. And everybody, while they're swimming around performing these skills, they're learning, whether they're doing something or not, they're learning all the time. What does this movement mean to me? How's it going to work? How's it going to affect me? You know, if you're kneeling down just waiting for your turn, I'm telling you, you're learning nothing at all. So this is a great way. I mean, we call it student-centered, don't we, Woody? Student-centered. This truly is student-centered, because each individual person is learning in their own way, you know. So that's basically, I don't know. There we go. Neutral buoyancy.
I remember, I remember when you showed me this, and I came in with the mindset that is still being fought today. Steve, I'm going to get in trouble. This isn't control. PADI's going to get mad at me. The dive shop owner, the local course director. I've lost control now. If they're moving around, even though it made no sense, since the minute we do a try scuba or discover scuba, we let them go all around by themselves. I don't know why they can, but our students who are actually getting certified to move around can't. It made no sense. How did you, or how did you, what did you do to deal with the agencies, the dive shop owners, and the course directors to get their mindset around just let them be free and move around, rather than, and that is control.
Yeah, it is. It is indeed. I mean, I don't know about other agencies, probably the same, but with PADI, the definition of confined water is as a safe and controlled environment. I mean, that is the very definition that they have. So the fact that they're in there, they're in a safe and controlled environment. Now, control is super important. I mean, especially in the world we live in now, the litigious world that we live in now. So control is absolutely paramount. Now, I'm not going to pretend it's easy for an instructor to do this. If an instructor wants to put the students in line and put their knees down and go down and work down the line and only work with students that aren't moving, that's a pretty simple thing for an instructor to be able to teach that way. That's pretty simple. The students aren't learning anything, but it's easy for an instructor. For an instructor to do what we're suggesting is having the students swim around, we need to give a little bit of credibility to the students themselves. I mean, there aren't many scared students that would be willing to take their regulator out their mouth if they felt uncomfortable with it. I mean, they won't, and nor should they. They should always do it with the sanctuary that's always being provided of an instructor to be there. I mean, I've never met one of these students, by the way. All the students I want to know, as soon as they've done it in front of me, with me being in control while they perform the skill, they're swimming towards me. As the instructors, they swim towards me. They do the skill. I'm there for them if they need me. As soon as they've gone, I mean, that regulator's out their mouth and put back in again. You know, I mean, they're just doing it because they want to. Now, if they was there, I mean, we're in like 3 feet of water, for heaven's sake. You know, I mean, if they were swimming there, they would
Right.
be in 3 foot of water. If there was, you know, so, I so I mean, if we've got a bigger class, you know, if we've got more divers swimming around, the instructor needs to be aware of what's going on. You can't just sort of relax and just let them do it. You need to be aware of, you know, what they're doing and what they're doing, and you know, and that one I'm a bit concerned about that one. So you know, I'm thinking about that one. So it's harder work for the instructor, but the students learn loads. It can never be dangerous. The instructor must never put a student in a position where there is danger. But really, what we're doing here is this is not dangerous. This is absolutely learning, for heaven's sake. Yeah.
No question about it. It finally did come around to the other
Mm.
instructors and course directors in my neck of the woods, and it took time. Took them
Yeah.
time to be able to let go of the old way and understand how much better this was. And in fact, you're really doing your students a favor, right?
Mm.
Because they're not going to be kneeling down. We don't want them kneeling down, right? If
No.
they have a real emergency, if they had the regulator fall out of their mouth, it's not going to happen when they're kneeling down. Maybe they were diving and a little fin hit it or something happened, right? It would never happen though when they're sitting there on their knees. So why would
No.
we ever do that? It just made no sense. And
Mm.
by the way, you're teaching them so many things by doing what your approach. It's not
I,
just that particular skill, right? Now they're really practicing every
yeah.
part of diving. Talk about
Yeah.
natural buoyancy practice. That's what
Yeah.
they're doing.
It is. I'd like to say those other course directors that you've met and those other instructors, you know, that were concerned about this. You can't blame these guys. I mean, they've lived with this all their life. You know, it's been drummed into them that control means just dealing with one person on their knees. They've been drummed in, drummed in, drummed in. And I've met people like this as well, you know, that have been a little bit. I mean, I think these people they know me, so they know that I'm not, you know, I'm not unsafe. They know that I'm safe, and they know what I'm talking about. That I at least I believe that it makes sense. Um, but they've got doubts themselves, and you can't blame them at all. But every single one of them, when they've actually seen it in progress, once they've actually seen it happening, they go, "Oh, that's what you mean." Okay, yeah, no, I get it, you know, and yeah, and it works quite well. But you've got to be there for your
It,
students for sure. If you feel, you know, that there is any weakness there, you need to be there for them, and it's just another sense that we pick up as instructors. You know, it's good.
no doubt. Well, we could go on, and well, we can't, right? But I would like
We-
to, but we can't. But I do want to do this. Tell
Okay.
me, let's wrap it up with this. There's two things I want you to tell me. One, give me one key takeaway of this entire theme that you want our viewers to remember about this whole discussion of fast. If you had to pin it down to one thing, I
Yeah.
want them to watch the end of this video and remember this one thing. What is it?
Okay, so I'm going to go one better than that, to be honest, if I can, Woody, because you've asked me to incorporate the fast. Well, I'm going to incorporate the fast and the natural buoyancy. Okay, so the one
Okay.
takeaway is all we've been talking about. This is the only thing we've been talking about. You need to involve your students in their own learning, whether it's in the pool, swimming around, doing stuff, or whether it's in the classroom. You need to involve the students in their own learning, and that's the sum total. Really, we could have cut this down to 30 seconds, couldn't we? Yeah.
Yeah, it's so much more enjoyable for the student. It really is. You just sit
Absolutely.
back and smile and be proud of how much they're
Yeah.
learning through this active method And that's great. Where can people find more information? In particular, those of you that are out there getting ready or preparing for the PADI IE, I think you've even updated it and made it really cool. Where's that website where they could take practice exams and everything else?
Okay, so Steve Pryor is my name, and I'm a CD, so Steve Pryor CD. You can Google, you can find my website. I've got an IDC preparation course on there, which covers all theory subjects. Is it okay to talk like this, Woody? Is it okay? Can I keep talking
Please
like?
talk like this. I want
Okay.
you to tell them this big time.
Okay, so if you find my website, stevepryorcd.co.uk, but if you Google it, you can find I've got an IDC preparation course, which goes through every single theory lesson with some test exams. And then I've got some full exams afterwards that are very similar to the exams you're going to find on the IE, 5 sets of those. And also, I've got how to teach in confined water, covering much of what Woody and I have been talking about, but other subjects as well, how to give a briefing, how to empower your students, how to, to give them empowerment and give them how they can have ownership of their own, how to get them to have ownership of their own lessons. There's all of that stuff. And there's 5 exams in there. Take a poke around the website. There's loads of free stuff on there as well. And yeah, that'd be great. Oh,
Absolutely, you should do this. And
oh
yeah, that's what I was
one.
going to talk about next. I was going to
Oh,
talk about that. So listen, when you see me wear my pink octopus hat,
yeah,
Steve's wife, Janet,
yes,
makes these. When I first saw it and she showed it to me, I'm like, Janet, this is unbelievable. So
they're
if you
great.
want to know what you've been asking me, they've been asking me on Dive Talk, where do I get them? Where do I get them? Let's tell them that as well. That's
So the other thing
speaking
is
of
that
fun.
people can find me on Facebook as well. And if they message me on Facebook, they can ask me about octopus hats. I can, point them to the Etsy shop or, anyway, yeah. And they can ask me any question they like. Yeah. Thanks, Woody. You're brilliant. You are.
Thank you so much, Steve. I'm not, but I miss you and I miss Janet. And I hope everybody loved this session and just forget and take this in. It's okay. Just forget. Just let it, just give it a try. It's amazing. You're really, really going to have fun with this.
Yeah.
Bye,
It is.
everybody. Thank you, Dive Talk.